welcome to the show where it's wrestling with entertainment, the only audio experience on the web today, the trusted choice for interviewing all your favorite wrestlers every Tuesday and Wednesday, and previewing and reviewing the latest shows from WWE, AEW, New Japan, and everything in between every Saturday on YouTube and Castbox, sponsored by Rogue Energy and Player One Coffee. I'm, of course, your host, James J., flying solo today, but it was a good week for Wrestling With, um, as we interviewed Devin Carter on Monday, um, Corey Cash Money McHenry on Tuesday, and Don Fernando on Wednesday. Incredible interviews. Definitely go check those out if you haven't already. But always looking towards the future. This upcoming Tuesday, we have Nord Arnheid on the show. Definitely a great interview with somebody from the AAPW family. If anybody knows our interviews from there, um, we talk about deathmatch wrestling, getting into pro wrestling as a whole. Um, his tag team partner, his rivalries, and so much more. And then on Wednesday, we have um, Jesus de Sofia from the Wrestle League part of things. And he's pretty much done everything in Wrestle League. He's won literally all three titles. We talk about that. We talk about um, his issues with his tag team partner, how they came together, how they disbanded. Um, we go all through that. We go through an injury early on in his career, issues with J.R. Lindsay and Kid Lat. We also talk about some cool entrances he's done as the Joker and as Darth Maul. So there's definitely a lot to look forward to in these upcoming interviews for sure. And you could always look to our social media at Wrestling with E, out on Extra and Instagram for information on who we're interviewing, when we're interviewing them, links to those interviews, and so much more. Now, very late to the game. For anybody that's wondering why Wrestling with Wit went on MIA for the last couple of weeks, I did fall ill. I was pretty sick for the last couple of weeks, but now feeling a bit better. Um, this last week of wrestling did not help my illness, but I feel good enough to talk to you guys for a bit about everything wrestling related this last week. So, it was a great day. It was a great week for wrestling because we are wrestling with WWE Night of Champions. That's right, we're not doing news this week because there was so many fucking wrestling shows last week. Like, legitimately, whose idea was it to put on 6 wrestling events in 42 hours? Whoever this man is should be sacked. And then sack the good man that was sacked. But yeah, it primarily started with Night of Champions. Yeah, because it was in the afternoon, early, late morning, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it was last, it was last Saturday. It took place in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, in the Kingdom Arena, and I feel like this was mostly on par with what you would see from a WWE show. Um, I mean, it was okay. I wouldn't say anything was out of this world or anything like that. I would say that it was pretty tamed, pretty, they don't really go all out when it comes to the wrestling side of things, when it comes to the Saudi shows. And I feel like we kind of saw that here. So just kind of was what it was, I would say. But let's get into it. First match, King of the Ring tournament final. Obafemi defeated Jey Uso in 7 minutes 56 seconds. And if I'm being honest, like, Oba gave Jey Uso way too much offense. Like, he did not look that weak against Brock Lesnar. So why the fuck was he bumping for Jey Uso? At the end of the day, they made the right call. The right guy won. Oba took the crown, made the most sense. Next night, well, 2 nights later, Monday Night Raw, he's like, "No, bro, I'm not going after the WWE Championship. The the belt will be there. I'm gonna fight Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam." And I'm like, "What the fuck? Like, why have him win King of the Ring if you're not going to pull the trigger?" I I personally feeling is they're blocking Oba because they've had Roman for the last couple of months. Roman said that he was going to be here, full time, and I'll give him this. He's primarily been there. He's been doing a good job, but they want him as champion right now. And maybe it's a bit of politicking on Roman's side as well. That's just speculation on my part. The bloodline hasn't been as strong, without him. And now, Jay, Jimmy, Fatu is all, and even Solo is getting, you know, more screen time than they have in quite some time. They'll say, "Oh, they're not ready to pull the trigger on Obafemi. He's not ready." Bitch, if you would have put in Obafemi to come out the night after Mania to wrestle Roman Reigns, have from Obafemi say, "I retired Brock Lesnar last night. I want a title match right now." And Obafemi beat Roman Reigns that night for the championship. Nobody would have batted an eye. Nobody would have said it was the wrong call or he wasn't ready or anything like that. They would have it would have blown the roof off of that place. People would have been into it, and nobody I don't think anybody would have had a problem with it. I would say if Oba, let's say they wanted to hold off on Oba because Roman just won the title. Okay, well, SummerSlam. Nobody would have an issue with Oba beating Roman at SummerSlam. We're not seeing it there either. They need to pull the trigger on Oba. It it's what the people want at this point, and it just don't make sense. Wasn't really that great of a match, but the right person won. 3 1/4. Now we have Io Sky defeating Liv Morgan to capture the Queen of the Ring crown in 14 minutes 56 seconds. Before the match started, Danhausen cursed Liv Morgan. So I feel like this match had an uphill climb to kind of begin with. Like, I mean, it felt very obvious that Io was, the main candidate. Like, you could maybe make the argument that Liv, challenges Rhea at SummerSlam, but primarily Io was. I kind of feel like everybody knew Io was going to get the nod. And then you have, right before the match, Danhausen cursing Liv. Nothing horrendous happened to her in the match, but, you know, you're kind of premeditating, a loss for her. Or that, doesn't look good for Danhausen. So, like, there was so much going against this match to begin with, and I still feel like the girls actually delivered a solid match. I think that Liv and Rio worked really hard. They had a really good match. It would have been better if the crowd was more into it because, Saudis, these they don't even want to see their girls drive, let alone fight. So, you know, but no, I think in the environment with everything that was against this match, it still succeeded. And it tells you how good of wrestlers Io Sky and Liv Morgan are that they could have such a good match, you know, climbing an uphill battle. So good on them for that. Um, Match of the night? Yeah, I feel comfortable doing that. 4 stars. Now we have Seth Rollins defeating Braun Breaker in a solid steel cage in 19 minutes 4 seconds. Um, it was okay. It didn't feel a lot of heat during the match. Just kind of went through the motions, if I'm being honest. There was a lot of moments that didn't necessarily make sense to me as well. And I felt like the ending made Braun look weak rather than strong. Like he, chastised Rollins for, going for the kill, but he didn't. He seemed he seemed responsive enough, like he could have countered that, mega corpse stomp. I don't know. I didn't think the match did Braun any favors. It's funny that we're at a point where, people were like, oh, Braun Breaker, he's going to be a future world champion, future main event, WrestleMania main eventer. And now we're at the point where, how can we salvage Braun Breaker's career? It's insane to me. But I feel like if you're putting that much pressure on a guy, when is he gonna win a title? And you're actively saying he's gonna win a title, and then he does jack shit in more than a year. Yeah, it's been over a year since he joined Division. Then it's maybe best to kind of pull back and rethink things. Some people are saying that they still want the vision to go on and that they could make it fresh and work, while other people are saying it's time to take this behind the barn and kill it. Um, the only thing for sure is that they want Paul Heyman to continue working with Breaker. I get it. Braun needs a crutch at this point, and Paul's a good crutch. If they do close the vision down, I do hope that they keep Paul with Bronson as well. Bronson and Paul worked really well together, if I'm being honest. Like, the dynamic and the chemistry was a lot better between the two of them than Paul and Breaker. But I'm definitely in the camp that the division needs to die at this point. We don't need division. It served no masters. Nobody came out of it looking great. It fucking destroyed Logan Paul's heat, and that's saying something because Logan Paul is the most hated man in WWE. So yeah, match. 3 stars. I feel comfortable with that. WWE United States Championship match. Trick Williams with Little Yachi defeated Ricky Saints in 10 minutes 43 seconds. Wasn't really feeling this match. It didn't seem like the crowd was really feeling this match either. And kind of just was what it was, if I'm being honest. Um, didn't really make sense for Ricky to be so over on Trick and getting heat on him. Like, he should have played more of like the chicken shit, heel and kind of bump for Trick, and they just didn't book it that way. And what we got was a half-baked scenario, I would say. I don't know. I didn't necessarily like this match. 2 7/5. Now we have Tiffany Stratton defeating Jade Cargill to retain the Women's United States Championship, 7 minutes 40 seconds. Okay match. Um, did what it needed to do and the time allowed. Didn't overstay its welcome. One of the better matches on the card. um, let's give it 3. Then we have the main event, the last match, triple threat match for the undisputed WWE Championship. Sami Zayn defeated Cody Rhodes and Gunther in 18 minutes 38 seconds. I thought this was a good match. I think everybody worked well together. Everybody was cohesive. Um, and I find it funny that people are going to say, "Oh, we hated Cody. the The product's so stale. Give us something new." And then we were given Sami Zayn to shake things up, and people are like, "Oh, why did you give us Sami Zayn? Oh, Sami Zayn's dumpster fire. Sami Zayn sucks. Why'd you do that?" Like, you just can't win either way. If I'm being honest, I think giving Sami the championship was the right call. I think for where he is as the character stands, it made the most logical sense. Um, where he is, and I mean, and they booked it in the best way possible as well. I mean, he won in, Saudi, where obviously his whole gimmick is he's underappreciated. He's the good last real good guy, and everybody's booing him. But in this match, he got cheered because he had home field advantage. And I think that all kind of worked well for them. I mean, if you were ever going to do it, it was going to be this match. So I'm low key happy for Sami. I think he deserves it. You know, kind of wish Kevin had a title reign as well. Only Universal level. Um, so yeah, it was still. I will say this: it was one of the better matches on the card. It definitely had that surprise factor and that pop factor. So I will give this 3.5. Show as a whole. Mm, I want to give it a dumps in the middle, but I don't think that there's ever going to be a a time when I think, yeah, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna watch this match or anything like that with this show, which is most Saudi shows, if I'm being honest. So I'm gonna give it a thumbs down in that regard. That will conclude our coverage of WWE Night of Champions. And we are wrestling with TNA Slammiversary. This was a matinee show because there was literally 3 wrestling events on Sunday. We had this show, Great American Bash, and an AEW Forbidden Door, all on the same show, all on the same day, I should say. And TNA was at least smart enough to know that they shouldn't go up against 2 other wrestling events, so they started the show earlier. That's why we're covering this one first. Uh, it took place in Boston, Massachusetts at the Agnes Arena, and there was 8 matches on this card. And if I'm being completely honest, out of the 3 wrestling shows that I saw on Sunday, also keep in mind I did not watch 3 wrestling shows on Sunday. I definitely did. I definitely um let it span. I um I'll say this. I watched NXT on Monday. I watched um AEW on Tuesday and Wednesday, and I watched this show TNA on Thursday. So it is the most freshest in my mind, compared to the other shows as well. So, and I will say, out of all 3 shows, this was probably my favorite. I thought that it was a solid show. It presented their wrestlers in a good way. I felt like every match had something that made you pop. Um, Honestly, all around, a really solid show, if I'm being honest. Let's get into it. We have Ultimate X for the X Division Championship. Cedric Alexander defeated Amazing Red. Fabian Eichner, Frankie Kazarian, Casey Navarro, Leon Slater, and Mr. Elegance. Um, Definitely a solid opener. Get the crowd going. Um, the car crash mentality, and it definitely had all of that working for it. People were hot for it. It went well. Um, I think that the ending was actually pretty good as well, with um Leon Slater holding the championship, and then Alexander just swooping in and grabbing it. Um, Solid ending into the match, and then we got that great moment with Kazarian and Red, where he would Red found out that he was being inducted into the TNA Hall of Fame. I didn't know that Amazing Red was actually still wrestling, so this was amazing just to see him wrestle. I know that he does still, he trains pro wrestlers. I've interviewed a couple of his students. Um, so yeah, just really good, solid. Like I said, solid opening to the whole entire show. Um, I will give it 3.5. Right. Then we have AJ Francis um versus Elijah. Had Elijah lost, Francis would have owned his name, likeness, and music catalog. That didn't happen. Elias won. Well, I should say Elijah. Uh, Gonna be completely honest here. Don't like Elijah, don't like AJ Francis. It was just a 3 hour show, I will give them that. It, but I was so, what's the word here? Um, I was so like sick of seeing people I disliked from the night prior, the whole AEW debacle, that I just did not. Why was I going to watch a show with, two guys that I absolutely despise? I wasn't into it. If there was maybe, if this was the only show I was going to review today, I might have considered watching it. Um, it did not play out that way. I wanted to speed it up. Um, and that's what I did. So I give this 2 fast forward bars. Then we have Demon Bunny, Rosemary, and Ali defeating the Elegance brand, Heather by Elegance and M by Elegance, um, to capture the TNA Knockouts World Tag Team Championships in 9 minutes 40 seconds. Solid match. Ash by Elegance got involved. The Casio got a face full of mist from Rosemary. And it's funny. As much as things change, things stay the same. Rosemary and Ali are back together and, killing it as a tag team. Like who knew? Um, like I said, solid match, kept the people going, did not overstay its welcome as well. All around successful in my book. Um, 3 stars. And then we have triple threat match for the TNA International Championship. Mustafa Ali defeated Rich Swann and Aha Nation, formerly Apollo Crews. I don't know whose idea was to give him the name Aha. But yeah, that's his name now. The other thing I would say worth noting in this match was Rich Swann that totally threw me off because Rich Swann did not look like Rich Swann. Uh, so yeah, I did not necessarily like that, but I think that was definitely another solid match. Um, I feel like Mustafa just works on a whole different level. He does the bad guy stuff really well. He does just being a good wrestler really well. He knows how to put everything together perfectly. And Tasha Steele deserves a medal for the way that she works with him as well. Like it's lightning in a bottle, and it works really well. Um, Rich Swann still goes fantastically. Uha Nation did his nation thing. I don't really feel like he presented me anything new or that I haven't seen already. But yeah, Mustafa was definitely the standout of this match for sure. Um, 3.5 stars. I'll give it. Now I will say this about this show. I think it was the best formatted. I feel like all of the matches, the placement of the matches worked really well. I think that they all the all the matches built to a climax rather than, this was a little bit off, or this seemed like a weird transition into this match, or every maybe not all the matches delivered what they needed to, but it what happened, the placement of the matches were the correct ones, I will say. Which brings us to a no surrender match. Moose with JDC defeated Eddie Edwards with Elisa Edwards in his corner. Uh, yeah, never seen a no surrender match, so this was definitely new territory for me. Um, Apparently there's only ever been one other in the history of TNA wrestling. Okay, that's fine. Um, I like the match. I thought that both guys did a lot of, brutal things to each other, without getting gory or, leaving a bad taste in people's mouth. Um, I think the main, thing that was, uncomfortable or was, added to the match was that Moose's wife and child was um, in the crowd. I say child. He was probably a teenager if I'm being honest. Um, Definitely old enough. um, and they used Moose's family against him, and like that was like insane because like I've never seen these people before. Like as far as I know, his wife isn't a former wrestler or knows how to bump, and she's getting thrown to the ground. And like it definitely was, shocking, honestly. You wouldn't expect them to kind of go there, and they did. Um then, Eddie took Moose's son going for, a pile driver, and his son hits him low. So he gets a little mile of revenge for his mom and dad. Moose breaks out of his, constraints. His wife gets a shot on Alicia. Um, Alicia throws in the towel for Eddie. Alicia and Eddie go to a table, and one of the better table spots I've ever seen. Like it looked like brutal, like how he put them through the table. So I would say that everything worked really well in this match. It wasn't for what they needed to do. I wouldn't say like, it was operating on a different level or anything. Like, you could see the setups, you could see, you know, how things was how they were setting things up, kind of sort of, seeing how the sausage is made, so to speak. But I don't think that it took away from the match. I think you kind of just, you know, there was emotion in the match. It got you invested, even though it wasn't triple. It wasn't what's it called? It wasn't a blockbuster movie. It it was directed TV, a directed streaming movie that was still solid enough to get a good review. Let's go with that. Three, no, at 4 stars. I like the match. 4 stars. A lot of things I did not expect. Definitely popped me. It all worked, in my opinion. Then we have the TNA Knockouts World Championship match. Isaiah Brookside defeated Li Yang Lee in 12 minutes 50 seconds. Probably the weakest match on the card, if I'm being completely honest. I wasn't necessarily a big fan of it. Um, I don't think that Zaya showed that she was like this evil heel or anything. It looked like she was kind of struggling to be a heel, if I'm being honest. Um, but as Kalika would say, the ends justify the means. She turned heel, so she needed, that reason. She needed to justify that, so she got that justification. She's champion for the first time, so we'll see what she does with it. Um, I don't think that this first match out necessarily, strengthened any of that, if I'm being honest, but, we'll see. Um, 3 stars, I'll say. And then we have four-way ladder match for the TNA World Tag Team Championships. The Broken Hardys, Matt and Jeff, defeated Brian Myers and Bear Bronson, Vincent and Dutch, and Jason Hotch and John Skylar. This was an insane fucking match. Like, it was brutal. There was a a ladder wrapped in barbed wire and flowers. Vincent fucking poisoned Brian Myers in this match. There was a table spot that was fucking insane, but 4 tables. Jeff jumped off something high, which I mean is just like a staple at this point. Like you're expecting him to. Um, Definitely not your run-of-the-mill normal ladder match. It was definitely memorable in that regard. I don't think I'm going to forget Brian Myers getting poisoned during a match, but I digress. We'll see. Um, did the Hardys need to win? I have no idea at this point, but they won. People enjoyed it. People seem to like it. I'm not mad at it either. It is what it is. Um, I think it just did. It was a fun match, got the crowd going, and yeah, I'll give it 4 stars. It was pretty solid. Then we have the main event, the last match. We have Nick Namek defeating Mike Santana to capture the TNA World Championship. This was the Call Your Shot Gauntlet trophy cash in, whatever you want to call it. That's what it was. So it was successfully cashed in. So there's that. Um, yeah, I've it was a solid match. Both guys worked hard. I'm not really a fan of Nick, so him winning the championship didn't necessarily do it for me. But I do think that it was still a good match. And it seemed like it deserved to be on, the main event slot because, it was a championship match. It was the championship, the most important championship that they have. And you want it to feel like it's a big deal. So, it was. I don't know how I feel about Santana losing the championship again. But we'll kind of see what happens with that. I know that, WWE is actively interested in Santana and his contract's coming up. So, this might be the reason why he's not, they took the belt off of him. So we shall see what happens there. The match itself, 3.5, I would say. It was okay. Definitely didn't wow me. Definitely didn't light the world on fire. But, I suppose it did what it needed to. Alright, show as a whole. Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs in the middle. Definitely a thumbs up. Out of all three wrestling shows last Sunday, this was definitely my favorite. I would definitely recommend going to see Slammiversary, and I would recommend, um, I would go back and I would watch this again, if I had to. So, yeah. Uh, that will conclude our coverage of TNA Slammiversary. And we are wrestling with WWE NXT Great American Bash. It was also last Sunday. As we established, there was three fucking shows in one fucking day. Fuck those people. They should be sacked. Again, like unsack them and then put them back in the sack and then teabag them. Um, which is a different sack completely. Um, it took place in Orlando, Florida, at the WRE Performance Center. Um, got 7 matches. Rather than your traditional 5 or 6. On the higher end of things. So good on TNA, not TNA, NXT for getting a little bit, adding a little bit more. Obviously this was the first ever PLE ever on broadcast TV, so there was that as well. Um, I wonder how many views this it got on YouTube afterwards. I know that they replay it on, they post it on YouTube as well. Um, but yeah, I felt like this was as good as you're gonna get currently for an on TV PLE. Like these are not necessarily people you're gonna pay for to watch wrestler. It just kind of is what it is at this point. NXT's building people, and none of them are really stars at this point. You just kind of have to roll with the punches until they hit uh that nail on the head when it comes to you know the people connecting with somebody. So, well, I would say keep that in mind. We The first match is the NXT Championship match. It kind of tells you where that championship is in the pecking order that, they started out with it. Kind of just get out of the way, honestly. Um, Tony D'Angelo defeated Naraku in 10 minutes, 12 seconds. He did it with one fucking eye as well. Which, I mean, the whole his face being wrapped in, bandages kind of seemed like hokey to me. Um, it didn't necessarily, like, they could have done a lot less and it could have been a lot more effective, if I'm being honest. It just seems so hokey and it took away from the match rather than add to it, if I'm being honest. And I don't think that it did Evil any favors losing to a one-eyed man either. So, yeah. Obviously Evil got his his heat back on NXT TV, but it still kind of is what it is. 3 stars, and I feel like I'm being generous with 3 stars in this one. And we have Zarya defeating Tatum Paxley to retain the NXT Women's North American Championship in 14 minutes, 9 seconds. Solid match. Tatum Paxley is a really good wrestler. Um, I think that we're getting to the point where Tatum is getting ready to be called up. Um, I feel like she was way she was pretty generous towards Zarya, who could struggle in these kind of matches. She kept her afloat, and I felt like it did get a kind of wonky or here and there, but like a AEW match would. Um, but I feel like they knew when to draw it back and come back to reality, so to speak. I will say this: if you're going to do an F5 when Brock Lesnar is still very much an active pro wrestler in WWE, do it better than you have, because it just looks like it fucking sucks compared to Brock, who does it obviously fantastic. It looks so lifeless, dull, and boring. And the F5 is like one of the best moves ever if you know how to do it properly. I don't think Zarya does, and I think that she needs to just retire that move or get a new one because it does not work for her. Still one of the better matches on the card. I will give this 3.5. Then we have Shiloh Hill defeating Tristan Angels in 13 minutes 7 seconds. I really don't like Tristan Angels. He's basically what are they called? He's basically just pretty deadly light, and he doesn't even do it that well as compared to those guys. Like it's so phony and wonky and cartoony that I hate it so much. Like it's not like good heat, it's go away heat, and you don't want go away heat. And I'm I don't want to see him wrestle. I don't want to see him on my TV screen. The thing that made this rivalry was Shiloh Hill. Shiloh being Shiloh, guy's going to be a star. Um, and I dare say that this match did not do him any favors, if I'm being honest. I felt like, first and foremost, the match went way too long. It felt like it went on forever, which is never a good thing when you have a 13-minute match. They had this really weird spot where they cut to, essentially a cutscene where they're underneath the ring. So Shiloh could come up from behind him when, they got out of the cutscene, so it made him seem maybe mystical or something like that. I don't exactly know, if I'm being honest. But it was a really weird way to end the match. But I do think that the right guy did win. I 2 and 7/5. It's literally the best I could do. Then we have the women's speed championship match. Ren Sinclair defeated Ariana Grace in 4 minutes 49 seconds. Solid match. Did not overstay its welcome. Did what it needed to do in the time allowed. 3.25 stars. Now we have Saquon Sigas defeating Dion Lennox in 14 minutes 21 seconds. Honestly, this was, for me, the match I wanted to see the most. I wanted to see, what they necessarily did with each other. Because, I've never been a fan of Dark State, but Saquon in the last couple of weeks have kind of been swaying me to say, this was a pretty good promo, pretty solid, and, let's see what the actual match, entails. Well, The match entailed a fought in shorts, if I'm being completely honest. Um, they did not work well together. It seems like it. I could not tell you. I would either say that either Dion was sandbagging Sugars or Sugars did not know how to land flush on Lennox. I could not. Everything they hit it, but they did not hit it flush, and it just seemed so sloppy and bad. Um, it didn't work, and the one thing that I will say that definitely bothered me a lot was that this was a grudge match. You're supposed Both guys are supposed to hate each other. They drew Sugars out of the faction. Lennox Sugars got his comeuppance on the other two members. It should have been it should have felt like these guys hated each other a lot more than they did. And it seemed like they just had a wrestling match when it should have been more of a fight. I understand, it's a wrestling match and they have to do wrestling moves, which is fine, but they could have thrown hands a bit more and show better animosity towards each other. 2 stars. Then we have Miles Bourne defeating Tavion Heights to retain the North American Championship in 17 minutes 15 seconds. Solid match, good match. Both guys are actually really good at pro wrestling, and I do hope that this leads to something a bit more aggressive between the two guys. No real complaints. 3.5. All right, and then we have the women's championship match, which was the main event of this show. Kendall Gray defeated Lola Vice in 15 minutes 13 seconds. Again, a really good match. Girls know how to work well with each other. Definitely delivered the same intensity, same type of energy that they did in New York. But obviously, a more, definitive ending. The ending did kind of seem like it came out of nowhere, but in a good way, I would say. Kendall, hit her with this, the shades of gray in a better, you know, in a way that made Lola still look strong. Anybody knows how much I love, Lola. Um, but I would say that Lola's run as champion wasn't as necessarily strong as it could have been. Um, Not on the wrestling side though. I think that she was pretty strong wrestling wise. But, promo wise, she could have been, better, unfortunately. And I think that that was one of the deciding factors on, you know, pulling the trigger on Kindle at this point and see, what she's made of and what she could do with the title. Um, Whether she'll be ready, I don't know. Seems like she's maybe a little bit more equipped promo wise, compared to Lola. We'll see how things go. I know Lola, um, Lilani? What is her name? Kaylani. Kaylani is still in the wings at this point, and it does seem like she's owed a title run sooner rather than later. She's just operating on that next level with the way that she's been acting on the show. So, um, yeah. Um, well, Lola's Vice is in it, so it's 4 stars right off the bat, and then solid match. Kendall Gray also pretty good. 4.5 stars. That will conclude our a thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs in the middle. I will say this was a thumbs thumbs down. There was nothing good on this, so but okay, I'm being way too hard with that. No, there was good things on this show, but I don't think I'm gonna go back and actually look at it. Uh, it just kind of is what it is. Again, we're in a rebuilding stage. You know, the stuff with Kindle and Lola was good. Um, and everybody else, Miles and Tavion. But yeah, I would say that this was I did not enjoy this as much as I could have. Thumbs down. All right. That will conclude our coverage of NXT Great American Bash, and then we are wrestling with AEW Forbidden Door. Took place last Wednesday, not Wednesday, last Sunday. And the people that booked this show should be shocked. It took place in San Jose, California, at the SOP Center. Attendance was 9,082, which is not a lot considering that's maybe this is like a 1,400 seat arena, right? This is a 18,000, around 18,000, yeah. So that's yeah, that's pretty bad. Oh, wrestling 18. Here we go, 18,300, and they did 9,000. They quite literally did half of the arena, which is low key kind of insane because they were at the Staples Center a couple of months ago and it was packed. They were in fucking Queens the other month and it was packed. I mean, maybe it just kind of tells you what the people felt when it came to the show, or maybe I don't know, but yeah, I find that very interesting. So, on to the actual show. My first statement is fuck you, Tony Khan. Like, legitimately, fuck you, Tony Khan. I got to the first match. The Young Bucks are the Young Bucks are your heater. They're gonna be the ones to set the tone for the night and get everybody invested. I sighed so fucking hard I hurt my stomach. When they came out, I checked how long is this event anyway? How many hours is this? I almost fainted seeing that this show was 5 fucking hours. And I was like, well, that don't work for me, brother. I'm gonna need something to speed up. And I did not need to see the Young Bucks versus El Sky Team versus Unbound Company. It was 17 minutes. It was almost 18 minutes, and I did not need to see that shit, so I sped it the fuck up. My first match of the night was Kenny Omega versus Zack Sabre Jr. Um, Kenny Omega got the W in 26 minutes 30 seconds, and I will say that this was probably, for me personally, the match of the entire night and the match of that whole weekend. It definitely delivered what it asked. Um, Not really. I know AEW doesn't really do stories to begin with. But there wasn't really any story. It was just two guys fighting to see who is the best. A dream match, kind of, sorta. They've wrestled before. But it's been 8 years. I feel like the match was slow, methodical, and well planned out. uh we're we're not seeing that, fast pace, impact from Kenny Omega. Unfortunately, I don't think that he's that guy anymore. But I don't think that he really needed to be that guy against Zack. Zack does set things, a bit, um, a bit slower paced wise to have, those submission moves. And I think both guys complement each other well, and I think that it was an absolute solid match. 5 stars. Yeah, I feel comfortable with that. 5 stars. John Moxley defeated Bandito to retain the Continental Breakfast Championship in 18 minutes 10 seconds. I do not like John Moxley. I don't like being Bandito. I didn't need a fucking reason to watch this match and a 5 hour fucking show. So I sped it up. I'm glad I did. I saw that both guys bled, which was so unnecessary for a match like this, but he's John Moxley. I like to bleed. A match I actually did see. Shota Uno defeated Pac to retain the IWGP Global Heavyweight Championship in 18 minutes 15 seconds. Um, okay match. Felt like it went way too long. I mean, I don't think Shota and Pac needed 18 minutes. They could have gone 10 and still, do what they needed to do in the match. Just seemed really unnecessary to me, if I'm being honest. Um, and then the whole thing with John Moxley coming out, and then Tanahashi saving Soda? Question mark. I don't know. It was a little wonky at the end. I would say that it took away from my enjoyment of the match, but then again, I didn't really enjoy the match to begin with. 3 stars. Then we have Claw 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 Claw, defeating Starlight Kid to retain the AEW Women's World Championship. 18 minutes, 45 seconds. Way too long. Um, I feel like Tekla is one of those people that could do a lot more in a lot less time, and she kind of has in the past. Um, wasn't really digging this, if I'm being honest. Um, no, I mean, I dug it. I thought it was solid, but I felt like it just went on longer than it necessarily had to. Um, I think that the story was definitely there, and it did what it needed to do. Again, could have been shorter. 3.5 stars. And I will say this: the the President Okada, he could take a bump. He literally got slapped with a mask and took a hell of a fucking bump. So good on him for that. AEW World Tag Team Championship match. Adam Copeland, Christian Cage defeated the Dogs, David Finlay and Clark Connors in 16 minutes 45 seconds. Good match. A little bit sloppy here and there. But I think it actually accomplished what it needed to in the time that they had. And I mean, Jay White made his return, which got a major pop. So honestly, there's not a lot of reasons to crap on the match. If I'm being honest, I think it was successful. Um, 3.5 stars. Then we have the Women's Owen Hart Cup final. Winner will receive an AEW Women's World Championship match. Mercedes Monet defeated Maya World in 24 minutes 55 seconds. Um, Like a blindfolded Stevie Wonder in the basement could have fucking told you that Mercedes was gonna win this match. Like, who the fuck is Maya Walt anyway? Um, I feel bad for Maya because like she actually had a good story going into the match. Like, um, I mean it's not a story. Her brother passed away right before the tournament, so I mean it would have been like a nice little you know success story to say, yeah, you know dark times, but there's light at the end of the tunnel. I won the tournament. I'm going to wrestle, Tekla for the championship. But, Mercedes is like, that don't work for me, brother. So, yeah, that kind of sucks for her. But, when you're working with, Mercedes, that's kind of how it goes. Um, I didn't watch the match because I knew it was going to be long and I didn't necessarily need the headache. 5 fucking hours show, like I said. So I sped it up. Then we have that store match. Um, since Briscoe's team won, he earned a AEW World Championship match against MJF. Team Briscoe, Mark Briscoe, Orange Cassidy, Roderick Strong, Kyle O'Reilly, Colt Kutska, Take Shida, and Darby Allin defeated D DCMM DCMJF. MJF, Kevin Knight, Kyle Flatulence, Jake Doyle, Kazuchika Okada, and Andrade El Idaho. 30 minutes, 50 seconds. Unnecessary fucking match. So, first and foremost, did not know who the hell was in this match to begin with. Like, I legitimately, like, who the fuck is Jake Doyle? Like, it fucking killed me. Like, Jake Doyle. Who's Jake Doyle? Jake Doyle's Jake something. And I literally have to fucking Google that. Jake, Jake something. And, like, that, it ate at me so much. And then just to know that it was Jake something helped me immensely. Why the fuck was Leo Russ in this match? Why the fuck is Leo Russ Golem from Lord of the Rings? Why did this match exist? Why did it need to take place? And why was it so senselessly? It was just senseless nonsense for 30 minutes. Like, legitimately. Like, they ate orange slices during the match. I will give them one kudos. One kudos. The design of that cage was fucking fire. And it was very aesthetically pleasing. For the first time, it wasn't, square ring, square cage. I like the round cage where they could go outside and, use weapons, but not make it like, seem like a Hell in a Cell match in the same regard. For AEW, I will give them kudos for that. I will give them an A plus. The cage design was fire. Everything else was a flaming fucking turd. Do I even want to give this like positive stars? I'll give it 1 star. And I'm being generous with that, if I'm being completely honest. And that brings us to the last fucking match of a 5-hour fucking show. Will Ospreay defeated Swerve Strickland to win the men's Owen Hart Cup in 35 minutes 30 seconds. People are coming themselves saying that this was the best match in the world. Oh, best match of the night, best match of the year. I disagree. I felt like the blood was so fucking unnecessary. Like both guys bled so much, like it was literally dripping. And for such a like, if you're going for prestige, and then you have that clusterfuck match before where they literally blew their whole entire load in the match, and then you go to this. It just seems so mundane and mediocre. I didn't like it. I knew Will Ospreay was gonna win. We all knew all Ospreay was gonna win. But again, it seemed like if an it seemed like John Moxley booked the match. If I'm being honest, Moxley book planned it and told them to do it. There was some good wrestling at the beginning. I will say that. Swerve is actually a good wrestler. But it's that unnecessary shit that bothers me. They didn't need to go that far. We didn't need to have buckets of blood. It could have just been a solid match that didn't require all the gaga and senselessness to get it over. This could have been a 5-star match. It wasn't. I'm being generous when I give it 3 stars. Now, for thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs in the middle, I give it 2 thumbs up the ass. Fuck Tony Khan. Fuck AEW for having a 5-hour show. It's so sad because was Double or Nothing? Yeah, Double or Nothing. 4 hour show. I watched all the matches. I enjoyed the matches. It was actually it was one of their best shows that they ever put on, like legitimately. And the crowd was so into it. It was, if they had planned that, if they would have formatted shows like that afterwards, this could have actually gotten me back into AEW. And it makes me not want to watch AEW ever again. I'm literally dreading the next paid preview because it's going to be 5 hours. I don't want to do that. Like, legitimately. You had the blueprint. You had such a solid show with Double or Nothing. And then you drew all that goodwill away on mindless mental masturbation. So, once again, fuck you, Tony Khan. And I will conclude that will conclude this show as a whole. Thank you for listening. If you like what we're doing, please like, subscribe, comment, both on YouTube and Castbox. This was sponsored by Rogue Energy and Player One Coffee. Join us this Tuesday as we interview Nord Arnheid, and this Wednesday as we interview Jesus De Sofio. And join us every Tuesday and Wednesday for new incredible interviews. You could follow the show at Wrestling with E, but on Extra and Instagram for information on who we're interviewing, when we're interviewing them, links to those interviews, and so much more. Follow me personally at JamesJ993. For Coleco Yachts and Scooter Dust, I'm James J, and this has been Wrestling with Entertainment.
Hey folks, this is the Colossal Mike Law, and you are listening to Wrestling with Entertainment. Enjoy the show, support these guys. We appreciate it very much. We'll see you at ringside.